Chapter 1 of Book 1 of Posterior Analytics. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Jeffrey Edwards. Posterior Analytics by Aristotle. Translated by Octavius Owen. Book 1, Chapter 1. Upon the nature of demonstration. All doctrine and all intellectual discipline arise from pre-existent knowledge. Now, this is evident, if we survey them all, for both mathematical sciences are obtained in this manner, and also each of the other arts. It is the same also with arguments, as well those which result through syllogisms, as those which are formed through induction, for both teach through things previously known, the one assuming as if from those who understood them, the other demonstrating the universal by that which is evident as to the singular. Likewise also do rhetoricians persuade, for they do so either through examples, which is induction, or through enthymemes, which is syllogism. It is necessary, however, to possess previous knowledge in a twofold respect, for with some things we must presuppose that they are, but with others we must understand what that is which is spoken of, and with others both must be known. As for instance, we must preassume that of everything it is true to affirm or deny that it is, but of a triangle that it signifies so and so, and of the monad we must know both, viz., what it signifies and that it is, for each of these is not manifest to us in a similar manner. It is possible, however, to know from knowing some things previously, and receiving the knowledge of others at the same time, as of things which are contained under universals, and of which a man possesses knowledge. For he knew before that every triangle has angles equal to 2 right angles, but that this which is in a semicircle is a triangle, he knew by induction at the same time. For of some things knowledge is acquired after this manner, nor is the extreme known through the middle, as such things as are singulars, and are not predicated of any subject. Perhaps, however, we must confess that we possess knowledge after a certain manner before induction, or the assumption of a syllogism, but in another manner not. For what a man is ignorant about its existence at all, how could he know at all that it has 2 right angles? But it is evident that he thus knows, because he knows the universal, but singly he does not know it. Still, if this be not admitted, the doubt which is mentioned in the Meno will occur. Either he will learn nothing, or those things which he knows. For he must not say, as some endeavour to solve the doubt, Do you know that every duad is an even number or not? For since if some one says that he does, they would bring forward a certain duad which he did not think existed, as therefore not even. And they solve the ambiguity, not by saying that he knew every duad to be even, but that he was ignorant as to what they know is a duad. Nevertheless, they know that of which they possess and have received the demonstration, but they have received it not of everything which they know to be a triangle or a number, but of every number and triangle singly. For no proposition is assumed of such a kind as the number which you know, or the rectilinear figure which you know, but universally. Still there is nothing, I think, to prevent a man who learns, in a certain respect knowing, and in a certain respect being ignorant. For it is absurd, not that he should in some way know what he learns, but that he should thus know it, as he does when he learns it, and in the same manner. Chapter 2. Of Knowledge and Demonstration and its Elements. We think that we know each thing singly, and not in a sophistical manner, according to accident, when we think that we know the cause on account of which a thing is, that it is the cause of that thing, and that the latter cannot subsist otherwise. Wherefore it is evident that knowledge is a thing of this kind, for both those who do not, and those who do know, fancy, the former, that they in this manner possess knowledge, but those who know, possess it in reality, so that it is impossible that a thing of which there is knowledge simply should subsist in any other way. Whether therefore there is any other mode of knowing we shall tell hereafter, but we say also that we obtain knowledge through demonstration, but I call demonstration a scientific syllogism, and I mean by scientific that according to which, from our possessing it, we know. If then to know is what we have laid down, it is necessary that demonstrative science should be from things true, first, immediate, more known than, prior to, and the causes of the conclusion, for thus there will be the appropriate first principles of whatever is demonstrated. Now syllogism will subsist even without these, but demonstration will not, since it will not produce knowledge. It is necessary then that they should be true, since we cannot know that which does not subsist, for instance, that the diameter of a square is commensurate with its side, but it must be from things first and indemonstrable, or otherwise a man will not know them, because he does not possess the demonstration of them. For to know those things of which there is demonstration not accidentally, is to possess demonstration, but they must be causes, and more known, and prior. Causes indeed, because we then know scientifically when we know the cause, and prior, since they are causes, previously known also, not only according to the other mode by understanding what they signify, but by knowing that they are. Moreover, they are prior, and more known, in two ways, for what is prior in nature is not the same as that which is prior in regard to us, nor what is more known simply the same as what is more known to us. Now I call things prior and more known to us those which are nearer to sense, and things prior and more known simply those which are more remote from sense, and those things are most remote which are especially universal, and those nearest which are singular, and these are mutually opposed. That again is from things first, which is from peculiar principles, and I mean by first the same thing as the principle, but the principle of demonstration is an immediate proposition, and that is immediate to which there is no other prior. Now a proposition is one part of enunciation, one of one. Dialectic indeed, which similarly assumes either part of contradiction, but demonstrative, which definitely assumes that one part is true. Enunciation is either part of contradiction, and contradiction is an opposition which has no medium in respect to itself. But that part of contradiction which declares something of somewhat is affirmation, and that which signifies something from somewhat is negation. Of an immediate syllogistic principle, I call that the thesis, which it is not possible to demonstrate, nor is it necessary that he should possess it who intends to learn anything, but what he who intends to learn anything must necessarily possess, that I call an axiom, for there are certain things of this kind, and in denominating these we are accustomed generally to use this name. but of thesis, that which receives either part of contradiction, as for instance, I mean that a certain thing is, or that it is not, is hypothesis, but that which is without this is definition. For definition is a thesis, since the arithmetician lays down unity to be that which is indivisible according to quantity, yet it is not hypothesis, since what unity is, and that unity is, are not the same thing. Notwithstanding, since we must believe in and know a thing from possessing such a syllogism as we call demonstration, and this is because these are so, of which syllogism consists, it is necessary not only to have a previous knowledge of the first, or all, or some things, but that they should be more known, for that on account of which any thing exists, always exists itself in a greater degree. For example, that on account of which we love is itself more beloved. Hence, if we know and believe on account of things first, we also know and believe those first things in a greater degree, because through them we know and believe things posterior. A man, however, cannot believe more than what he knows, those things which he does not know, nor with respect to which he is better disposed than if he knew. This, however, will happen, unless some one should previously know of those who give credence through demonstration, since it is more necessary to believe either in all, or in certain first principles, than in the conclusion. It is not only, however, requisite that he who is to possess knowledge through demonstration should know in a greater degree first principles, and believe rather in them than in the thing demonstrated, but also that nothing else should be more credible, or more known to him, than the opposites of the principles, from which a syllogism of contradeception may consist, since it behoves him who possesses knowledge singly to be unchangeable. Chapter 3. Refutation of certain opinions as to science and demonstration. To some, because it is necessary that first things should be known, science does not appear to exist, but to others to exist indeed. Yet, they think, there are demonstrations of all things, neither of which opinions is true or necessary. For those who suppose that knowledge does not subsist at all, these think that we are to proceed to infinity, as if we may not know things subsequent by things prior, of which there are no first, reasoning rightly, since it is impossible to penetrate infinites. And if, they say, we are to stop, and there are principles, these are unknown, since there is no demonstration of them, which alone they say is to know scientifically. But if it is not possible to know first things, neither can we know either simply or properly things which result from these, but by hypothesis, if these exist. Others, however, assent with respect to knowledge, for they assert that it is only through demonstration, but that nothing prevents there being a demonstration of all things, for demonstration may be effected in a circle, and things be proved from each other. We, on the contrary, assert that neither is all science demonstrative, but that the science of things immediate is indemonstrable. And this is evidently necessary, for if it is requisite to know things prior, and from which demonstration subsists, but some time or other there is a stand made at things immediate, these must of necessity be indemonstrable. This therefore we thus assert, and we say that there is not only science, but also a certain principle of science, by which we know terms, but that it is impossible to demonstrate in a circle simply is evident, since demonstration must consist of things prior and more known, as it is impossible that the same should be prior and posterior to the same, unless in a different way, as for instance, some things with reference to us, but others simply in the manner in which induction makes known. If however this be so, to know simply will not be well defined, but it is twofold, or the other demonstration is not simply so, which is produced from things more known to us. Still there happens to those who assert there is demonstration in a circle, not only what has now been declared, but that they say nothing else than this is if it is, and in this manner we may easily demonstrate all things. Nevertheless, it is evident that this occurs when three terms are laid down, for to assert that demonstration recurs through many or through few terms, or whether through few or through two, makes no difference. For when A existing, B necessarily is, and from this last C, if A exists, C will exist. If then, when A is, it is necessary that B should be. But this existing, A exists, for this were to demonstrate in a circle. Let A be laid down in the place of C. To say therefore that because B is, A is equivalent to saying that C is, and this is to say that A existing, C is, but C is the same as A, so that it happens that they who assert there is demonstration in a circle say nothing else than that A is because A is, and thus we may easily demonstrate all things. Neither, however, is this possible, except in those things which follow each other, as properties. From one thing, however, being laid down, it has been proved that there will never necessarily result something else. I mean by one thing, neither one term, nor one thesis being laid down, but from two first, and least theses, it is possible to infer necessarily something else, since we may syllogize. If then A is consequent to B, and to C, and these to each other, and to A, thus indeed it is possible to demonstrate all those things which are required from each other in the first figure, as we have shown in the books on syllogism. It has also been shown that in the other figures there is either not a syllogism, or not one concerning the subjects assumed, but it is by no means possible to demonstrate in a circle those which do not reciprocate. Hence, since there are but few such in demonstrations, it is evidently vain and impossible to say that there is demonstration of things from each other, and that on this account universal demonstration is possible. End of chapter 3 of book 1. Recording in memory of Mitchell Edwards. Of book 1 of Posterior Analytics by Aristotle, translated by Octavius Owen. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Jeffrey Edwards. Chapter 4. Upon the terms, quote, of every, close quote, per se, close quote, and quotes universal. Since it is impossible that a thing of which there is simply science should have a various subsistence, it will be also necessary that what we know should pertain to demonstrative science, and demonstrative science is that which we possess from possessing demonstration. Hence a syllogism is a demonstration from necessary propositions. We must comprehend then of what, and what kind of propositions, demonstrations consist. But first let us define what we mean by "of every," and "per se," and "universal." I call that "of every," which is not in a certain thing, and in another certain thing is not, nor which is at one time, and not at another, as if animal is predicated of every man, if it is truly said that this is a man, it is true also that he is an animal, and if now the one is true, so also is the other, and in like manner, if a point is in every line. Here is a proof, for when we are questioned, as it were, of every, we thus object, either if a thing is not present with a certain individual, or if it is not sometimes. But I call those "per se," which are inherent in the definition of what a thing is, as line is in triangle, and point in line, for the essence of them is from these, and they are in the definition explaining what it is. Also those things which are inherent in their attributes in the definition declaring what a thing is, as the straight and the curved are inherent in a line, and the odd and even in number, and the primary and composite, the equilateral and the oblong, and they are inherent in all these, in the definition declaring what a thing is, there indeed line, but here number. In a similar manner in other things, I say that such are per se inherent in each, but what are in neither way inherent, I call accidents, as the being musical, or white in an animal. Moreover, that which is not predicated of any other subject, as that which walks being something else, is that which walks, and is white, but essence, and whatever things signify this particular thing, not being anything else, are that which they are. Now those which are not predicated of a subject, I call "per se," but those which are so predicated, I call accidents. Again, after another manner, that which on account of itself is present with each thing is "per se," but that which is not on account of itself is an accident. Thus it is an accident if while anybody was walking, it should lighten, for it did not lighten on account of his walking, but we say that it accidentally happened. If, however, a thing is present on account of itself, it is per se, as if any one having his throat cut should die, and through the wound, because he will die in consequence of his throat being cut. But it did not accidentally happen that he whose throat was cut died. Those therefore which are predicated in things which are simply objects of science per se, so as to be inherent in the things predicated, or which are themselves inherent in subjects, are on account of themselves, and from necessity, for it does not happen that they are not inherent, either simply or as opposites, as the straight and the curved in a line, and the even or odd in number. For a contrary is either privation or contradiction in the same genus, as that is even which is not odd in numbers, so far as it follows. Hence, if it is requisite to affirm or deny, it is also necessary that those which are per se should be inherent. Let then the expressions "of every" and "per se" be thus defined. I call that universal, however, which is both predicated "of every" and "per se," and so far as the thing is. Now it is evident that whatever are universal are inherent in things necessarily, but the expressions "per se," and so far as it is, are the same, as a point and straightness are per se present in a line, for they are in it, in as far as it is a line, and two right angles in a triangle, so far as it is a triangle, for a triangle is per se equal to two right angles, but universal is then present, when it is demonstrated of any casual and primary thing, as to possess two right angles is not universally inherent in figure, yet it is possible to demonstrate of a figure that it has two right angles, but not of any casual figure, nor does a demonstrator use any casual figure, for a square is indeed a figure, yet it has not angles equal to two right, but any isosceles has angles equal to two right, yet not primarily, for triangle is prior. Whatever therefore is casually first demonstrated to possess two right angles, or anything else, in this first is the universal inherent, and the demonstration per se of this is universal, but of other things, after a certain manner, not per se, neither is it universally present in an isosceles, but extends farther. Chapter 5. Of errors about the primary universal. We ought not to be ignorant that frequently error arises, and that what is demonstrated is not primarily universal, in so far as the primarily universal appears to be demonstrated. Now we are deceived by this mistake, when either nothing higher can be assumed, except the singular or singulars, or when something else can be assumed, but it wants a name in things differing in species, or when it happens to be as a whole in a part, of which the demonstration is made, for demonstration will happen to particulars, and will be of every individual, yet nevertheless it will not be the demonstration of this first universal. Still I say the demonstration of this first, so far as it is this, when it is of the first universal. If then any one should show that right lines do not meet, it may appear to be a proper demonstration of this, because it is in all right lines, yet this is not so, since this does not arise from the lines being thus equal, but so far as they are in some way or other equal. Also if a triangle should be no other than isosceles, so far as isosceles it may appear to be inherent. Alternate proportion also, so far as regards numbers and lines, and solids and times, as was once shown separately, it is possible at least to be demonstrated of all by one demonstration, but inasmuch as all these, numbers, length, time, are not one denominated thing, and differ from each other in species, they were assumed separately, but now the demonstration is universal, for it is not in so far as they are lines or numbers that it is inherent, but in so far as this thing which they suppose to be universally inherent. For this reason, neither if one should demonstrate each several triangle by one or another demonstration, that each has two right angles, equilateral, the scalene and the isosceles separately, would he yet know that the triangle itself has angles equal to two right, except in a sophistical manner, nor triangle universally, though there should be no other triangle besides these, for he does not know it so far as it is triangle, nor does he know every triangle, except according to number, but not every according to species, even if there be no one that he does not know. When then does he not know universally, and when knows he simply? It is clear that if there is the same essence of a triangle and of an equilateral, either of each or of all, he knows, but if there is not the same, but different, and it is inherent, so far as it is triangle, he does not know. Whether, however, is it inherent, so far as it is triangle, or so far as it is isosceles? And when, according to this, is it primary? And of what is the demonstration universally? It is evident that it then is, when, other things being taken away, it is inherent in the primary. Thus two right angles will be inherent in a brazen isosceles triangle, when the being brazen and the being isosceles are taken away, but not if the figure or boundary is taken away, nor if the primary are. But what primary? If indeed triangle is taken away, according to this it is inherent in others, and of this universally is the demonstration. Chapter 6. Demonstration consists of principles per se, and of a necessary medium. If then demonstrative science is from necessary principles, for what is scientifically known cannot subsist otherwise, and those which are per se inherent are necessarily so in things, for some are inherent in the definition of what a thing is, but others are they in the very nature of which the subjects are inherent, of which they are so predicated, that one of opposites is necessarily present, it is evident that the demonstrative syllogism will consist of certain things of this kind, for every thing is either thus inherent, or according to accident, but accidents are not necessary. Either therefore we must say this, or the demonstration is a necessary thing, if we lay down this principle, and that if demonstration is given, that a thing cannot subsist otherwise, wherefore the syllogism must be from necessary matter. For it is possible without demonstration to syllogize from what are true, but we cannot do so from things necessary, except by demonstration, for this is now the essence of demonstration. An indication also that demonstration is from things necessary is, that we thus object to those who think they demonstrate that the conclusion is not necessary, whether we think that the matter may altogether be otherwise possible, or on account of the argument. Hence too the folly of those appears, who think they assume principles rightly, if the proposition be probable and true, as the sophists assume that to know is to possess knowledge, for it is not the probable or improbable which is the principle, but that which is primary of the genus about which the demonstration is made, nor is everything true appropriate, but that it is necessary that the syllogism should consist of necessary things appears also from these, for if he who cannot assign a reason why a thing is, when there is a demonstration, does not possess knowledge, let A be necessarily predicated of C, but B the medium through which it is demonstrated, not of necessity. In this case he does not know the cause, for this is not on account of the medium, for the latter may not exist, yet the conclusion is necessary. Besides, if some one does not know, though he now possesses a reason, and is safe, the thing also being preserved, he, not having forgotten it, neither did he before know it. But the medium may perish, if it is not necessary, so that he, being safe, will have a reason, the thing being preserved, and yet not know it, wherefore neither did he know it before. But if the medium is not destroyed, yet may possibly perish, that which happens will be possible and contingent. It is impossible, however, that one so circumstanced should know. When therefore the conclusion is from necessity, there is nothing to prevent the medium, through which the demonstration was made, from being not necessary, since it is possible to syllogize the necessary even from things not necessary, just as we made the true from things not true. Still, when the medium is from necessity, the conclusion is also from necessity, as the true results from the true always. For let A be of necessity predicated of B, and this of C, then it is necessary that A should be with C, but when the conclusion is not necessary, neither possibly can the medium be necessary, for let A be present with C, not of necessity, but let it be with B, and this with C of necessity. A then will also be of necessity present with C, yet it was not supposed so. Since therefore what one knows demonstratively must be inherent of necessity, we must evidently obtain the demonstration through a necessary medium also, for otherwise he will neither know why a thing exists, nor that it is necessary for it to exist, but he will either imagine not knowing, if he assumes what is not necessary as if it were necessary, or in like manner he will not imagine if he knows that it is through media, and why it is through the immediate. Of accidents, however, which are not per se, after the manner in which things per se have been defined, there is no demonstrative science, since it is not possible to demonstrate the conclusion of necessity, because accident may possibly not be present, for I speak of accident of this kind. Still, some one may perhaps doubt why we must make such investigations about these things, if it is not necessary that the conclusion should be, for it makes no difference if any one interrogating casual things should afterwards give the conclusion. Nevertheless, we must interrogate, not as if the conclusion were necessary on account of things interrogated, but because it is necessary for him who asserts these should assert this, and that he should speak truly, if the things are truly inherent. Since, however, whatever are inherent per se, are necessarily inherent in every genus, and so far as each is, it is clear that scientific demonstrations are of things per se, inherent, and consist of such as these, for accidents are not necessary, wherefore it is not necessary to know the conclusion why it is, nor if it always is, but not per se, as for instance, syllogisms formed from signs. For what is per se, will not be known per se, nor why it is, and to know why a thing is to know through cause, wherefore the middle must per se be inherent in the third, and the first in the middle. Chapter 7. That we may not demonstrate by passing from one genus to another. It is not therefore possible to demonstrate passing from one genus to another, as for instance to demonstrate a geometrical problem by arithmetic, for there are three things in demonstrations: one, the demonstrated conclusion, and this is that which is per se inherent in a certain genus; another are axioms, but axioms are they from which demonstration is made; the third is the subject genus, whose properties and essential accidents demonstration makes manifest. Now it is possible that the things from which demonstration consists may be the same, but with those whose genus is different, as arithmetic and geometry, we cannot adapt an arithmetical demonstration to the accidents of magnitudes, except magnitudes are numbers, and how this is possible to some shall be told hereafter. But arithmetical demonstration always has the genus about which the demonstration is conversant, and others in like manner, so that it is either simply necessary that there should be the same genus, or in a certain respect, if demonstration is about to be transferred, but that it is otherwise impossible is evident, for the extremes and the middles must necessarily be of the same genus, since if they are not per se, they will be accidents. On this account, we cannot by geometry demonstrate that there is one science of contraries, nor that two cubes make one cube, neither can any science demonstrate what belongs to any science, but such as are so related to each other as to be the one under the other, for instance, optics to geometry, and harmonics to arithmetic. Nor if anything is inherent in lines, not so far as they are lines, nor as they are from proper principles, as if a straight line is the most beautiful of lines, or if it is contrary to circumference, for these things are inherent, not by reason of their proper genus, but in so far as they have something common. Chapter 8. Things which are subject to change are incapable of demonstration per se. It is also evident that if the propositions of which a syllogism consists are universal, the conclusion of such a demonstration, and in short of the demonstration of itself, must necessarily be perpetual. There is not then either demonstration, nor in short science of corruptible natures, but so as by accident, because there is not universal belonging to it, but sometimes, and after a certain manner. But when there is such, it is necessary that one proposition should not be universal, and that it should be corruptible. Corruptible indeed, because the conclusion will be so, if the proposition is so, and not universal, because one of those things of which it is predicated will be, and another will not be, hence it is not possible to conclude universally, but that it is now. It is the same in the case of definitions, since definition is either the principle of demonstration, or demonstration differing in the position of the terms, or a certain conclusion of demonstration. The demonstrations and sciences, however, of things frequently occurrent, as of the eclipse of the moon, evidently always exist, so far as they are such, but so far as they are not always, they are particular, and as in an eclipse, so also is it in other things. End of chapter 8 of book 1. Recording in memory of Mitchell Edwards. Chapter 9 of book 1 of Posterior Analytics by Aristotle, translated by Octavius Owen. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Jeffrey Edwards. Chapter 9. That the demonstration of a thing ought to proceed from its own appropriate principles, these last indemonstrable. Since, however, it is evident that we cannot demonstrate each thing except from its own principles, if what is to be demonstrated is inherent in a subject, so far as the subject is that which it is, to have a scientific knowledge of that thing is not this, if it should be demonstrated from true, indemonstrable, and immediate propositions. For we may so demonstrate possibly, as Bryso did, the quadrature of the circle, since such reasonings prove through something common that which is inherent in another thing. Hence these arguments are adapted to other things not of the same genus. Wherefore that thing would not be scientifically known, as far as it is such, but from accident, for otherwise the demonstration would not be adapted also to another genus. We know however each thing not accidentally, when we know it according to that, after which it is inherent from principles which are those of that thing, so far as it is that thing, as that a thing has angles equal to two right angles in which the thing spoken of is essentially inherent from the principles of this thing. Hence, if that is essentially inherent in what it is inherent, it is necessary that the middle should be in the same affinity, but if not, yet it will be, as harmonics are proved through an arithmetical principle. Such things however are demonstrated after a similar manner, yet they differ, for that they are is part of another science, for the subject genus is another, but why they are is a province of a superior science, of which they are the essential qualities. Hence from these things also it is apparent that we cannot demonstrate each thing simply, but from its proper principles, and the principles of these have something common. If then this is evident, it is also clear that it is impossible to demonstrate the proper principles of each thing, for they will be the principles of all things, and the science of them the mistress of all sciences. For the man has more scientific knowledge who knows from superior causes, since he knows from prior things when he knows not from effects, but from causes, so that if he knows more, he knows also most, and if that be science, it is also more, and most of all such. Demonstration, however, is not suitable to another genus, except as we have said, geometrical to mechanical, or optical, and arithmetical to harmonical demonstrations. Nevertheless, it is difficult to know whether a man possesses knowledge or not, since it is hard to ascertain if we know from the principles of each thing or not, which indeed constitutes knowledge. We think, however, that we know, if we have got a syllogism from certain primary truths, but it is not so, since it is necessary that they should be of a kindred nature with the primary. Chapter 10. Of the definition and division of principles. I call those principles in each genus, the existence of which it is impossible to demonstrate. What then first things, and such as result from these signify, is assumed, but as to principles, we must assume that they are, but demonstrate the rest, as what unity is, or what the straight and a triangle are. It is necessary, however, to assume that unity and magnitude exist, but to demonstrate the other things. Of those which are employed in demonstrative sciences, some are peculiar to each science, but others are common, and common according to analogy, since each is useful so far as it is in the genus under science. The peculiar indeed are such as that a line is a thing of this kind, and that the straight is, but the common are, as that if equals be taken from equals, the remainders are equal. Now each of these is sufficient so far as it is in the genus, for a geometrician will effect the same, though he should not assume of all, but in magnitudes alone, and the arithmetician in respect of numbers alone. Proper principles, again, are those which are assumed to be, and about which science considers whatever are inherent per se, as arithmetic assumes unities, and geometry points and lines. For they assume that these are, and that they are this particular thing, but the essential properties of these, what each signifies, they assume, as arithmetic, what the odd is, or the even, or a square, or a cube, and geometry, what is not proportionate, or what is to be broken, or to incline, but that they are, they demonstrate through things common, and from those which have been demonstrated. So also astronomy, for all demonstrative science is conversant with three things, those which are laid down as existing, and these are the genus, the essential properties of which the science considers, and common things called axioms, from which as primaries they demonstrate, and thirdly, the affections, the signification of each of which the demonstrator assumes. There is nothing, however, to prevent certain sciences overlooking some of these, as if the genus is not supposed to be, if it be manifest that it exists, for it is not similarly manifest that number is, as that the cold and hot are, and if the science does not assume what the affections signify if they are evident, as neither does it assume what things common signify, as what it is to take away equals from equals, because it is known, nevertheless these things are naturally three, viz. That about which demonstration is employed, the things demonstrated, and the principles from which they are. Neither, however, hypothesis nor postulate is that which it is necessary should exist per se, and be necessarily seen, for demonstration does not belong to external speech, but to what is in the soul, since neither does syllogism, for it is always possible to object to external discourse, but not always to internal. Whatever things then, being demonstrable, a man assumes without demonstration, these, if he assumes what appear probable to the learner, he supposes, and this is not an hypothesis simply, but with reference to the learner alone, but if, there being no inherent opinion, or when a contrary is inherent, the demonstrator assumes, he requires the same thing to be granted to him, and in this hypothesis and postulate differ, for postulate is anything sub-contrary to the opinion of the learner, which though demonstrable a man assumes, and uses without demonstration. Definitions then are not hypotheses, for they are not asserted to be, or not to be, but hypotheses are in propositions. Now it is only necessary that definitions should be understood, but this is not hypothesis, except some one should say that the verb to hear is hypothesis, but they are hypotheses, from the existence of which, in that they are, the conclusion is produced. Neither does the geometrician suppose falsities, as some say, who assert that it is not right to use a false principle, but that the geometrician does so when he calls a line a foot long when it is not so, or the line which he describes a straight line when it is not straight. The geometrician indeed concludes nothing from the lines being so and so, as he has said, but concludes those which are manifested through these symbols. Moreover, postulate and every hypothesis are either as a whole or as in a part, but definitions are neither of these. Chapter 11. Of certain common principles of all sciences. That there should then be forms, or one certain thing besides the many, is not necessary to the existence of demonstration, but it is necessary truly to predicate one thing of the many, for there will not be the universal unless this be so, and if there be not an universal, there will not be a medium, so that neither will there be a demonstration. It is essential then that there should be one and the same thing, which is not equivocal in respect of many. No demonstration, however, assumes that it is impossible to affirm and deny the same thing at one and the same time, unless it is requisite also thus to demonstrate the conclusion. It is demonstrated, however, by assuming the first to be true of the middle, and that it is not true to deny it, but it makes no difference whether we assume the middle to be or not to be, and in a similar manner also in respect of the third. For if that be granted, in respect of which it is true to predicate man, even if some one should think that man is not man, the conclusion will be true, if only it is said that man is an animal, and not that he is not an animal. For it will be true to say that Callias, even if he be not Callias, yet is still an animal, but not that which is not an animal. The cause, however, is that the first is not only predicated of the middle, but also of something else, in consequence of its being common to many, so that neither if the middle be that thing itself, or not that thing, does it make any difference in respect to the conclusion. But the demonstration which leads to the impossible assumes that of everything, affirmation or negation is true, and these it does not always assume universally, but so far as is sufficient, and it is sufficient, which is assumed, in respect of the genus. I mean by the genus, as the genus about which a person introduces demonstrations, as I have observed before. All sciences communicate with each other according to common principles, and I mean by common those which men use as demonstrating from these, but not those about which they demonstrate, nor that which they demonstrate, and dialectic is common to all sciences. If also any one endeavours to demonstrate universally common principles, as that of everything it is true to affirm or deny, or that equals remain from equals, or others of this kind, dialectic, however, does not belong to certain things thus definite, nor to one particular genus, for it would not interrogate, since it is impossible for the demonstrator to interrogate, because the same thing is not proved from opposites. This, however, has been shown in the treatment of syllogism. Chapter 12 of Syllogistic Interrogation. If syllogistic interrogation is the same as a proposition of contradiction, but there are propositions in each science, from which the syllogism which belongs to each consists, there will be a certain scientific interrogation, from which the syllogism which is appropriate to each science is drawn. It is clear then that not every interrogation would be geometrical, or medical, and so of the rest, but from what anything is demonstrated about which geometry is conversant, or which are demonstrated from the same principles as geometry, as optics, and in like manner with other sciences, these also must be discussed from geometrical principles and conclusions, but the discussion of principles is not to be carried on by the geometrician so far as he is such, likewise with other sciences. Neither is every one who possesses science to be interrogated with every question, nor is every question about each to be answered, but those which are defined about the science. It is evident then that he does well who disputes with a geometrician thus, so far as he is such, if he demonstrate anything from these principles, but if not, he will not do well. Again, it is clear that neither does he confute the geometrician except by accident, so that there cannot be a discussion of geometry by those who are ignorant of geometry, since the bad reasoner will escape detection, and it is the same with other sciences. Since there are geometrical interrogations, are there also those which are ungeometrical? And in each science are those ignorant questions which are of a certain quality geometrical? Whether also is a syllogism from ignorance, a syllogism composed from opposites, or a paralogism, but according to geometry, or from another art, as a musical interrogation is ungeometrical about geometry, but to imagine that parallel lines meet is in a certain respect geometrical, and after another manner ungeometrical. For this is twofold, in the same way as what is without rhythm, and the one is ungeometrical, because it possesses not what is geometrical, as what is without rhythm, but the other because it possesses it wrongly, and this ignorance, which is from such principles, is contrary. In mathematics, however, there is not in like manner a paralogism, because the middle is always twofold, for one thing is predicated of every individual of this, and this again of another every, but the predicate is not called universal. Those, nevertheless, it is possible we may see by common perception, but in argument they escape us. Is then every circle a figure? If any one should delineate it, it is clear, but what? Are verses a circle? They are evidently not so. Still it is improper to object to it, if it be an inductive proposition, for as neither is that a proposition which is not in respect of many things, since it will not be in all, but syllogism is from universals, neither, it appears clear, is that an objection, for propositions and objections are the same, as the objection which one adduces may become either a demonstrative or a dialectic proposition. It occurs that some argue contrary to syllogism from assuming the consequences of both extremes, as Caianus does, that fire is in a multiple proportion, because, as he says, both fire and this proportion are rapidly generated. But thus there is no syllogism, though there will be if the multiple is consequent to the most rapid proportion, and the most rapid proportion to fire in motion. Sometimes it does not happen that a conclusion is made from the assumptions, and sometimes it happens, but is not perceived. If however it were impossible to demonstrate the true from the false, it would be easy to resolve, for the terms would be necessarily converted. Thus let A exist, and this existing, these things also exist, the existence of which I know as B. From these then I will demonstrate that that exists. What pertain however to mathematics are rather converted, because they take nothing accidental, and in this they differ from dialectical subjects, but definitions. Yet they are increased, not through media, but through additional assumption, as A of B, this of C, this again of D, and so on to infinity. Also transversely, as A both of C and of E, as there is a number so great, or even infinite, which is A, an odd number so great, B, and an odd number C. A then is true of C, and the even is a number so great, D. The even number is E, wherefore A is true of E. Example 1. Every odd number is finite or infinite. Every ternary is an odd number. Therefore, every ternary is finite or infinite. Every even number is finite or infinite. Every binary is an even number. Therefore, every binary is finite or infinite. End of chapter 12 of book 1. Recording in memory of Mitchell Edwards.